On the 24th of January 1972, two local hunters on the Pacific island of Guam were checking traps in a remote jungle stream when they stumbled upon a frail, hunched-over figure draped in filthy clothing. At first, they assumed he was a local villager, but fearing for his life, the man lashed out and attacked. The startled hunters quickly subdued their assailant and carried him back to their village, where they handed him over to local authorities. To the astonishment of those who first questioned him, the man identified himself as Sergeant Shoichi Yokoi of the Imperial Japanese Army, who was once part of the 18,500-strong garrison stationed on the island during the Second World War. Born in Surrey, Japan, on March 31st, 1915, Yokoi worked as an apprentice tailor in his youth, before being conscripted into the Imperial Japanese Army in 1941 at the age of 26. Initially stationed in Manchuria, he was later transferred to Guam in February of 1943, following its capture from the Americans in 1941. On July 21, 1944, US forces launched a coordinated invasion to reclaim the island, deploying over 36,000 troops against the outnumbered Japanese defenders, who were ultimately decimated in the ensuing battle. The few Japanese who survived the initial fighting were ordered to retreat into the jungle and continue resistance through guerrilla warfare, with Yokoi and 9 of his comrades fleeing into the island's interior. Following the announcement of Japan's unconditional surrender in August of 1945, Allied forces dropped millions of leaflets across the Pacific Islands to inform any remaining Japanese soldiers that the war had ended, though Yokoi and his companions would quickly dismiss them as American propaganda, intended to lure them into captivity. Influenced by years of military indoctrination, many Japanese viewed surrender as dishonorable, and feared that capture by the enemy would mean torture and execution, further motivating them to remain in hiding. Initially, the holdouts continued to survive in small groups, but as the years passed, their numbers steadily declined, with some surrendering to authorities, while others perished from disease and starvation. By 1964, a flood had claimed the lives of Yokoi's last 2 companions, leaving him in complete isolation. For the next 8 years, he survived alone, building an underground shelter camouflaged with bamboo and foliage. Drawing on his tailoring skills, Yokoi crafted clothing from tree bark, used plant materials for bedding, and hunted at night to avoid detection, surviving on whatever he was able to trap and forage, including papaya, coconuts, eels, and rats. On February 2nd, 1972, 2 weeks after his discovery in the jungle, Yokoi was formally repatriated to Japan, arriving in Tokyo to a hero's welcome, with thousands gathering at Haneda Airport to witness his return. Harboring a sense of guilt and shame for having survived the war, Yokoi expressed his initial feelings by stating, "It is with much embarrassment that I return." He was soon swarmed by the media, and quickly began appearing on radio and television, and was eventually invited to speak at universities and schools across the country. Despite his newly found fame and recognition, Yokoi never fully adapted to modern life, and he often spoke of feeling alienated in post-war Japan, a nation transformed by industry and consumerism. 9 months after returning to Japan, he married and settled in his hometown, where he led a modest life, advocating for simple living, self-sufficiency, and the preservation of traditional values. In his later years, he made several trips back to Guam, reconnecting with the place that had defined much of his existence. Shoichi Yokoi passed away in 1997 at the age of 82.